Hi guys, I hope you're all well. Today I'm going to film the Friends tag, which is a tag that my friend Lynne, whose channel name is Lynne85, I'll link it in the description box for you to go and have a look at if you haven't already checked out her channel. She made up this tag about 2 weeks ago, something like that, and I watched it and I instantly was like, I have to film this. I wanted to go and film it right there and then, but I thought, no, you do not have time for this. I think it was on New Year's Eve or something like that and I didn't have time to do it. But it just was really fun and I really love Friends. I'm a massive fan of Friends. And it just seemed like an excellent film and TV related video for me to jump on the bandwagon with. Alright, so let's get started. The first question is, what is your favourite and your least favourite series? Now, I think I'm probably quite similar to Lynne in that my favourite series tend to be like the later series rather than the earlier ones, just because I really loved how the characters had all kind of like come into their own by that point. A lot of my other friends actually liked the earlier series better. They felt like by the end things had got a bit over the top, but for me I just felt like the characters had become so well developed, the relationships were so intricate and you had so much of a backstory that it just made it all the more entertaining to watch. So I think my favourite series would probably be between 7 and 8. I loved series 7 and series 8 because round about then it was all focused on Monica and Chandler's wedding and Rachel being pregnant with Emma, and I loved both of those storylines, and so those two series had those as kind of like overarching storylines which I really liked, but they also just had a lot of other really funny moments thrown in amongst them. So yeah, I think I would say 7 or 8. I also really loved the final season, so I loved season 10, but if I had to pick one, I think I would probably say season 7 was my favourite. In terms of least favourite, I don't know that I necessarily have a least favourite season. I think if I had to say one, I'd probably say season 1, and it wasn't because it wasn't a good season, but I think for me, my favourite thing about Friends is the intricate, crazy relationships between them all, the backstory and the history between them all, and that's something that you're only starting to find out about in season 1, which in other shows I really love. I love the first season of so many shows because it's setting everything up and it makes everything really exciting, but with Friends my absolutely favourite thing about it was just all the in-jokes and all the history and everything that got built up over time, and so you don't really have a whole lot of that in season 1, so it probably would be my least favourite. Next is favourite couple and least favourite couple. Favourite couple for me is kind of a no-brainer. My favourite couple is Monica and Chandler. I just love Monica and Chandler so much. I think that the chemistry between the actors was fantastic. I think also because you knew that they were so close and such good friends in real life, that kind of just added to the whole magic of their relationship. I love how they had sort of like really realistic ups and downs in their relationship. They, you know, once they got married were having problems conceiving, and when he moved to Tulsa, so work things were keeping them apart and whatever. I just feel like they've got a really nice realistic relationship, and I think that they balance each other out in such nice ways because they are quite different people, but their relationship just works so nicely, and I think because it's got that really strong foundation on the fact that they were friends for so long beforehand, it just, oh, they just make me smile. And in terms of least favourite couple, I think that I can jump very firmly in the bandwagon with Lynne in this one and say Ross and Emily. The Ross and Emily storyline was just one of those things that, you know, I understand why they did it. I understand that, you know, if you put people together too early in those kind of situations. Ross and Rachel's long running relationship chaos was fed through the entire 10 series of the show, and the thing is, when you find actors that have chemistry like that and characters that people want to be together so much, the really difficult thing is that if you put them together too soon, what do you do with the rest of your time? So you have to throw a lot of spanners in the work, and you have to have reasons why the couple aren't working out or why they aren't together, so that you can kind of build on that and not have people, because you know, I talked about this in a recent video talking about Once Upon a Time, where so many people, and I'm a huge fangirl when it comes to the couples in that show, but a lot of people kind of tweet and stuff and say, oh, I just want them to have like a nice cozy night in front of the telly and order a pizza, and you're like, do you? Do you? Because if they do that and everything's fine, what's going to happen with the rest of the time? So what I feel in terms of that was the Ross and Emily storyline was thrown in there to just give another sort of hurdle in the whole ongoing Ross and Rachel story, and obviously Ross did fall for her, but it just didn't ever feel right. It never felt right. Emily, the demands that Emily, now obviously, if your fiancé said the wrong name at the altar, you're not going to be happy. You know, if it was me, I would not want anything more to do with him at all, but it's just the demands that she makes and the way she goes about everything. She's just not a likeable character, and yeah, they were definitely my least favourite couple. Next is the trickiest one because it's favourite episode. I honestly don't know if I could choose my favourite episode. There are a few that always stand out to me as ones that there's just so many that you particularly enjoyed, but for me, the one with Unagi, I'm laughing and I'm not even talking about it yet. The Unagi one, for just so many reasons. is one of my absolute favourite episodes because I love everything that's going on in that episode. You've got Ross being such an idiot with Rachel and Phoebe with the whole Unagi daft situation. It's a very typical daft Ross moment where he's sort of jumping out from behind walls and hiding behind couches and just trying so desperately to prove his point and just completely humiliating himself. So I love that. I love the Monica and Chandler storyline in that episode, which is the Valentine's Day one where they're supposed to make the presents, and he gives her the CD from Janice, which is just amazing. And what else is going on? Oh, one of my favourite scenes ever. Joey is at wanting to do the medical study for identical twins, so he's got the guy from the casting agency to come into Monica and Chandler's house and pretend to be him. It's Carl's, and it's so good. It just makes me so happy. And Chandler and Monica come out and find this guy in their kitchen, and Joey's like, oh, it's just Carl. Who the hell is Carl? If you've watched it, you'll know how amazing that episode is. So I really enjoy that. Oh yeah, also another brilliant scene from that is where Ross goes to the self-defence class at the end, and he's talking to the self-defence teacher about how they could attack them together. Oh, like there's so many good things about that episode, so it's one of my all-time favourites. Another film favourite is the one with the holiday armadillo. I just think that some of the scenes in that are absolutely hysterical, especially when Chandler comes in dressed as Santa and Ross is sat there like weird turtle man. Just so good. So it's another firm favourite. Another one is the Thanksgiving episode where Rachel's making the trifle and she puts the beef in it. I think Lynne talked about that one a little bit because one of my favourite things about that episode was the Ross and Monica sort of tailing on each other to their mum and dad. So you've got these like 30-year-old adults sort of telling tales on each other to their parents. You know, the sort of Ross having taken drugs scandal and Monica breaking the porch swing, and there's just so many good things about that episode, so it was fantastic. Another couple that will always stand out are the episode where Phoebe and Mike got married, because it was one of my favourites. I just thought it was the loveliest wedding. It makes me cry every time I watch it, it's just so nice. And as Lynne said, actually a lot of the later ones with Ross, so the one with the tan and the one where Ross is fine, all those ones are always really good ones. He's got a lot of really good episodes, so I couldn't pick one. It would be one of those ones that I've just listed there, but I don't think that I could select just one from that category because there's just so many good ones. The next question is, which character would you be friends with in real life? I think that I would probably be friends with Chandler or Rachel. They were my two favourite characters. I love them to pieces, and I think that Chandler's just so sweet, and he's got this kind of like, he's got this sort of like angst of like always being worried that he's not quite good enough, and I think he's such a sweetheart, and obviously, you know, he tries very hard to always be the funny one, but I think he genuinely is just a lovely, lovely guy. So Chandler would definitely be one of the people that I'd want to be friends with. But also I really loved Rachel. She was always one of my favourite characters, and I think out of the three girls she's probably the one that I maybe relate to the most, which I think was similar to what Lynne said. I think Monica, the whole neat freak, control freak kind of thing is just not kind of me at all. So I don't know how I would deal necessarily with that. And Phoebe is just amazing, but her kind of like out there-ness I think would be actually quite fun to be friends with, but slightly different from me. And Rachel's probably the one that I'm maybe the most, I don't know, maybe slightly more like in real life, I guess. Not really, I don't think that I'm necessarily all that like her, but I think that we would probably get on fairly well. Next question is, which character would you date in real life? I think for that I'm agreeing again with Lynne. I would date Mike. Oh, Paul Rudd. I mean, really, do I need to say anything else? Paul Rudd's just one of my favourite people. I just think he's so sweet and just lovely, and I just think that the character, out of the three kind of main guys, I would not date Ross, he would drive me up the wall. I would not date Joey, I'd be concerned that he'd be sort of eyeing up other women all the time, as sweet and adorable as he is. And I probably would date Chandler, but I think that if I was given the option to date Mike, then I would definitely date Mike. Next question is, funniest moment. Now, I think I've kind of covered that in my what was my favourite episode one, because there were so many moments in it. There were a couple of things though that I didn't mention. There's an episode, I can't remember what series it's in, it's when Rachel has short hair, so probably 6 or 7. And it's when she's been teaching Ben the sort of tricks like drawing on people's faces and putting cling film over the toilet and all that. And then so he starts taking all that out on Ross, and Ross gets raging. The final scene of that episode is when they're in Rachel and Joey's apartment, and Ross chases Ben out of the room, and they throw like a mannequin dummy version of Ross down the stairs, and Rachel comes out and sees it and she's just like screaming in bits, and then Ross and Ben are having a great laugh and it's hilarious. That bit always really makes me laugh. I think the moment when Ross tries to kiss his cousin is hilarious, because just that train of thought through his head where he's like, say anything, any words will do. It's amazing, because you're just watching and you're knowing, you have those moments yourself where you've maybe done something or said something that you're like, oh, why did that just happen? Hopefully not that you tried to kiss a member of your family, but you know, it's just his reaction. So many moments with Ross are hilarious like that. The moment where there's the student that's had the crush on him, or has pretended to have the crush on him, and he's like, he's saying to him that he knows that he didn't really love him, he doesn't love him and he never did, and his colleagues have walked in at this point and overhear this entire conversation, and it just looks so bad. That's a good one. When Rachel's dating Bruce Willis, so Elizabeth's dad, and what's his name, Paul? Yeah, Paul's the man and all that. And Ross is hiding in the little like cupboard and he can see him, or under the bed. Yeah, he's under the bed and he's watching him doing all his like, Bruce Willis doing all his like, you're the man and stuff in the mirror. That is amazing. There's too many. All these ones that I'm listing are coincidentally much like Lynne's very much Ross-centric episodes, but there's just so many absolutely fantastic, hilarious moments in the show. The angle of this has changed ever so slightly because I'm filming using my tripod for the first time. I finally ordered a tripod. It's only been like 2 years since I've started making YouTube videos, but I've never had a tripod, and my little filming setup has tended to be setting my camera on top of a pile of DVDs on top of a table, so it's not been that stable. I filmed the end of that video and it felt like the last question was out of focus, so I just decided to film it again. So the final question is, what is the saddest moment? And I've got a couple for that both make me feel really emotional every time that I watch them, and both can instantly make me cry. So the first is the final episode and the very end scene when they're all putting their keys down, and you can see how totally emotional the actors all are, because you know the characters are all crying because they're, you know, they're leaving the apartment and whatever, but you can tell that it's like genuine emotion on the part of the actors, because this has been 10 years of their life that they've spent doing this amazing show, and it's been so successful, and they've become these like iconic characters, and they've been such an integral, you know, part of each other's lives. This is what they've done for 10 years, and it's just, oh, it's so sad. And also just because it's the end, and so you know that you can go back and rewatch it as many times as you want, but that's the end of your time with those characters, and that just always makes me sad. But the other episode that makes me cry without a doubt is the episode where Phoebe gives birth to the triplets. So she has had them, and she's had her little moment with Rachel where she's saying, oh, maybe I could keep one and all that stuff, but it's when the babies are born and she's sitting with the three of them talking to them, and you see her kind of realising that she now has to part with them, and although she's known that she's doing this for Frank and Alice, and that's what this has all been about, I think the reality of actually having to part with these babies just sort of hits her, and you can just see for her, like they start to cry and she's like, oh well, if you're gonna cry, like then she starts it, and it just, oh, it's heartbreaking, it's so sad. Every time I watch that episode I'm like, oh, and buckets of tears. But yeah, it's always a sad one. So that is it, that's the end of the Friends tag, that's the last question. I hope that you have enjoyed that, guys, and if you are a fan of Friends, whoever you are, I tag you all. I encourage anybody who loves Friends to film this video and leave me a link down in the comments so I can go and check out your answers. And go and check out Lynne's video, which was the original version of this. I've linked it in the description box so that you can go and have a look at that. And I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope that 2015 has been treating you well so far, and I will speak to you again soon. Thanks for watching, bye! Pretty Little Liars is one of these shows that for years I've been like, I would love that. Why do I not watch this? And I've probably seen a lot of spoilers and stuff on Twitter, which is not great.